Hello SuperCoaches, welcome to the final big bye round of the season. Origin players out, a heap of injuries to deal with as well. It's going to be tough fielding a 13 this week for a lot of SuperCoaches. Big panel with the two W's on, Wilson and the Whisperer. I'll start with you, the Whisperer. How's your team travelling?
It's travelling, as best to put it. We're motoring on.
It exists.
Yeah.
Wilson?
I actually had one of my best rounds of the season last week. Right 2 weeks after I've pretty much given up for the year, I'm back to where I was before then. I think I was in the top 4,000 scores of the week, so not bad. My team's still going horribly, but a good week.
Well, not paying for the Wi-Fi package on that cruise for 2 weeks was probably
a bit of a setback.
Not the best way to do things. How many players you got on the park this week?
Before trades 14, so very thankful that I've got some ammo, but there's a couple of questionable names, let's say the least there, out of that 14.
Also?
12 for me before trades,
Yeah.
So I will still bring in 3 guys this week just to have a bit of a safety net. Yeah,
I feel like I've got the Bear 13, but having the Bear 13 even in these rounds is not the way to go. The bye rounds have been so easy, and on the big bye rounds, people have 16, 17 players, and then the best 13 comes out of that. So I'm keen to make 1, maybe 2 trades to get 14 or 15 on the park this week.
Yeah, I'll be making all 3 for me to get to 15, hopefully.
So I did speak that it was a massive teams day. What's your biggest takeaway, Whisperer?
Mine was buying Reece Walsh a couple of weeks ago, thinking I've got an absolute gun here. Ponga's going to be named at Origin, and we name him. And Walsh wasn't named, but still not available, unfortunately, as 18th man.
Yes, Billy ruined a few SuperCoach dreams there. What's yours?
For me, he's not in my team, but I do think it's relevant for a lot of SuperCoaches this week, and that's that Sam Smith is back. Possibly only for 1 more week, because Sam Walker, we're expecting he'll be back next week, but still a massive inclusion for everyone who still has him. Yeah,
there was a bit of trouble with his knee, but he's been cleared of serious injury. So we'll play this week. Next week, probably back to the bench. For me, I was hoping that Nathan Lawson would get named. He went down sort of late and played on in that great win for the Dragons on the weekend, but he's picked up a shoulder injury out until round 23. So that extra number that a lot of SuperCoaches were relying on will not be there. Are you a Lawson owner?
I am not, but it was definitely a gutsy effort. I'm sure you were very happy, mate, as a Dragons fan.
Yeah, it was huge. Yeah, it was a great little victory. First of all, I'll run through what we're going to do on this show. Hold or sell Tino. Karaz is obviously out. Shibasaki out due to Origin. Is Jed Stewart really a cheapie? Injuries to Metcalf, Couchman, Ponga, a whole bunch of others. Obviously, Origin players are out. 7 teams on the bye, so it is a huge show. Bulldogs v the Broncos. It's a blockbuster clash on a non-Origin week, but there are a lot of guys out. No Karaz due to Origin, so do you own him? What are your plans there? You can't sell him, can you?
No, you can't sell him. My plans were to buy him this week, and I was very happy. I was very scared fading him last week. To only watch him put up mid-50s, I was over the moon. Buy him a little bit cheaper this week, but it's not to be, unfortunately, as it seems like Laurie Daly and Billy Slater both don't play SuperCoach.
Yes, Laurie seems to absolutely love Karaz.
Non-owner, but he was on my radar, but obviously not a buy this week, but not a sell either.
On to, obviously, Stephen Crichton, Kurt Mann, all the Origin guys are out. Jacob Preston is the 3rd most purchased player. I talked him up last week on the podcast saying he's a better buy than Kickout, who was the more popular buy last week. And look, I stand by that absolutely.
Yeah, I back it. I think they're both decent buys, but yeah, I still think Preston is the better buy.
I'm the panel divider here. I was really, really impressed with Kickout's 65 base last week. Something that we never see from him. So he's added that to his game on that really dominant left. No Karaz. So expect with Burton back in, that ball probably going to go left this week. I like him for a little bit cheaper.
On to the Broncos. So no Shibasaki in Origin. No Walsh. Won't even probably play Origin, but he won't be available for the Bronx. We've got Payne Haas, Pat Carrigan on Origin duty. But it's all really about Karapani. If you missed out last week at $290K, do you get on this week at $416,000?
It's a no from me. I think last week was really the week to get on. Now you're buying him, and Broncos are missing a lot of players, and they're coming up against a pretty good defensive team. So I think you've missed the boat. And if you want a cheaper centre wing, I think you got to look at someone like Jed Stewart.
Yep.
I agree with Wilson. He's really good. That left is humming, but paying 400k, it's just a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, definitely last week was the week to get on. The Raiders v the Dragons. So at the Raiders, Tapanay's in despite that horrific picture from over the weekend. So hopefully he plays, but they've got Papali'i and Hudson Young in Origin camp. Papali'i, somewhat of a shock. But I'll point out that is good for guys like Corey Horsburgh, Zach Hosking, etc.
Yeah, definitely.
I own Hosking, and he was never really in doubt. But Corey Horsburgh, the fact that he's moving back to front row this week, I'm thinking of actually bringing him in just for an extra number.
Really?
Going against my rule of bringing guys back in that I've already traded. But I really like it for them.
I've had Morgan Smithies in my team for about 5 weeks. Don't ask me why. And he was all but gone this week. But look, I've been given a lifeline, so Morgan will stay for 1 more week somehow.
So Billy stuffed you around on Reece Walsh, but offered you something good on Morgan Smith.
It's equal, of course. Reece Walsh, Morgan Smith, the same thing.
Justice.
Yeah, exactly.
SuperCoach justice. Jed Stewart. So he is obviously the most popular cheapie of the week by a pretty long way. The coach's son, he scored 2 tries in his first 2 games. Look, it's hard to argue with him being the cheapie of the week. What are your thoughts?
Look, I don't think he's a great buy, but he is the cheapie of the week. And if you need to make moves to sort of downgrade to centre wing, bring him in and upgrade elsewhere, which is I think what I'm going to do. I don't love it, but I think I'm going to be doing it anyway, just because he is so cheap.
Yep.
Well, I don't own him. I'm not overly keen. I'd rather just take a guy that doesn't play. I understand it. You get a number. But the scores without a try, they're going to be pretty grim. So I want people to be prepared for that. I think he scored 41 last or the week before last. That was with a try and a line break. So it's like 12 points without the try. Yeah. Just be prepared if he doesn't score.
Yeah, I mean, the job security is good with Tamale out for a while. But I think there might be another guy who's a better option in Kane Bradley, who we'll get to later on, unless someone's got something to chat about with him.
I was really keen on the Dragons, Nick Sorenganis, but it seems like he's not getting a game, unfortunately. He was really good in his one appearance. But it's probably Jed Stewart and the winner by default.
Yep. On to the Dragons. So as I mentioned, no Nathan Lawson in that side due to a shoulder injury. So many injuries at that club, I can't even run through them in this podcast, to be honest. And Val Holmes not there, obviously. But Couchman is a big one, out with a shoulder injury.
Yeah, it looks pretty bad as well. And he's been a decent sort of pod this year, and especially in draft, he's been killing it. So a bit of a blow to everyone who picked him up.
That Strepsil's not doing its work that you gave me before, Will. So what are your thoughts on Couchman?
I'll give you a little bit of breathing room. But no, he's been really good. Like, he's been a guy that was mid 500Ks, putting up high 60s, low 70s, a guy that you probably could have had for the run home. Picked up that injury a couple of weeks ago. It never really kicked on from that. And obviously, season over now, unfortunately.
On to the Cowboys v the Storm. So the Origin guys are out, obviously. Scott Drinkwater. It was a 50-50 call between him and Pappenhausen for the captaincy last week. I went with Pappenhausen, given his record at Amy Park. Obviously did not pay off, and Drinkwater comes out and bangs out a massive ton. So I'm a bit dirty on Drinkwater, but I own him. I'm happy that I do. Good buy schedule. He doesn't have a break until round 27. But do you get on this week? He's the 6th most purchased player.
Look, I captained him last week, and I was really happy with that. But it's a much tougher matchup this week. The Storm are not, they're not the Titans, so I think it's a bad matchup. You're sort of chasing last week's points, so I don't think he's a great buy this week. But I mean, if you want a good fullback for the run home other than the last week, I think he's decent. But I wouldn't be doing it this week.
If I'm not mistaken, the Dolphins put 50 or 60 on the Cowboys without their Origin players. So I'm probably a little bit hesitant to that. And as good as the Dolphins have been, the Storm are that class above. So maybe not for this week. I think there's a certain Panthers fullback you can target for the run home if you're looking for that in a week's time.
Huge call onto the Storm. So all the Origin blokes are out. Sua Fa'alongo got shot by the sniper over the weekend. Unfortunately out for about 8 weeks. Jerome Hughes, very popular. Eli Katoa, very popular. We'll do them one at a time, because Jerome Hughes would probably involve selling someone like Nathan Cleary or Nico Hines. As good as Hughes is going, would you be selling one of those two guns to get him in?
I've been pretty staunch on holding both of them so far this year, and I have, but I am going to move on from Hines this week and bring in Hughes.
Huge.
I think it's a sensational matchup. I think he's a captaincy option, and I really like him. And Nicho Hines has just been so disappointing the last sort of month that I think you can justify selling him now.
I think if you've held Cleary this long, I wouldn't see a world where you sell him. If we had this conversation 5 weeks ago, definitely. But the run home for Penrith is absolutely golden, and you're 1 week away from that being unlocked. So I would sell Hines for Hughes. On Eli Katoa, it's really nice when he scores a try because you know you're going to get another 30 points because it's most likely Jerome Hughes putting him through that hole. So it's that stack that we call it. We love it.
Yeah, great combo there. And man of the match on the weekend, Eli Katoa was absolutely brilliant. I don't see any world where you can not own Eli Katoa. He's just so good in that position. But Jerome Hughes, it's a little bit more iffy, given that halfback is such a red-hot position for SuperCoach.
Yeah, I own Katoa as well, so I'm very keen to have that stack.
So any love for Kane Bradley at all? I know I brought him up before. Should play the next couple of weeks. He's dual position, so you can swing him around with guys like Dylan Lucas, Beau Fermor, for example. Should play the next couple of weeks and then not play again. He's a real good aerial target for the Storm, and they love kicking to their wingers. I like it as a sort of couple of week play, and then he nuffs out.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered him at all, but I suppose the fact that he does actually will nuff out quicker than Stewart, I think is actually interesting. So I might have to have another look.
Yeah, it's a no. I'm going to leave this one to you guys. I'm not overly keen, but I can see the appeal. The 2RF centre wing duel historically has always been really handy in, and we've got guys like a Dylan Lucas this year that have been killing it. You can move them up and down.
On to the Roosters v the West Tigers. So at the Chalks, Mark Nawanga-Nitawaze is the most purchased player. I actually bought him kind of by default a couple of weeks ago and then got on when he scored that massive 130 odd a couple of weeks ago. So I'm a happy owner, averaging like mid-70s. He's right up there with the best guys in the position. Still relatively cheap and should see some price rises going forward. So, look, I honestly can't talk anyone out of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't hate it. He's not on my radar. I bought Herbie last week and now I'm pretty happy with my centre wing. So if I needed another good centre wing, I would consider bringing him in, but I think I'm just not going to go there this week. But I don't hate it at all.
Yeah, he's an absolute specimen. Tackle busting machine, line breaks for fun. Yeah. That Tiger side that's been named this week is far from ideal. As a Tiger fan myself, it was very hard looking at 4 o'clock. But yeah, up against Charlie Staines this week, I'm pretty sure, which should be a really good matchup for Nawanga-Nitawaze.
Yeah, it's a rough matchup, and obviously James Tedesco as captain is going to be ridiculously popular. In terms of Tedesco, if you haven't bought him in, I've had him for a while. I'm very happy. I paid a massive price for him, but he's now dipped to a pretty a decent price for him. Do you just cut the cord and say, look, I've missed out, I need to get Tedesco in for the rest of the season and just do it this week?
Yeah, I like it. And with Sam Walker back next week, I mean, the Roosters are just going to get even better, you would think. And yeah, I think it's a good matchup for him this week, and he's a good captaincy option.
I think he's the fullback one for the run home. I was very, very blessed the week everyone bought Gutherson. I decided to go a bit rogue and get Teddy. It's worked well for me since, but he's the guy to have, similar to Herbie. You paid up for him last week, you pay up for Teddy. It's the peace of mind that you get with that price tag.
And as we mentioned before, Sandon Smith playing this week, but probably back to the bench next week. So if you've got him, you probably should be planning to sell at some stage. On to the West Tigers. So too many injuries to mention. Unfortunately, Whisperer. One guy who I'm devastated is out because he's been a nice little Mr. Fix-It in my draft side is Heath Mason, who's out due to suspension. He just got dual position the other day as well, and I won't be able to use that for SuperCoach going forward. Any other guys that stand out? Latu Fa'asuamaleaui, is there anyone at the Tigers? They're just falling apart at the moment. No Galvin, his best mate Talon De Silva's left. Galvin's sledging the club on social media. Like, what's happening?
You say it's falling apart at the moment. I feel like...
At the moment, yeah, sorry.
I feel like we replaced at the moment the last 15 years, and it's the same thing. Look, it's tough times. I will say, if you didn't buy Latu Fa'asuamaleaui, we probably won't mention him, but KO Weeks is 80k more, has a brilliant run home, and has that massive upside as well. So if you're looking at Latu, maybe try and spend up.
Yeah, he's quite popular this week, actually, Kaya. So, yeah, decent option. On to the Sea Eagles. So no Origin players for your Sea Eagles.
It's a rare moment. We've sort of had at least one out every year for a very long time now. So maybe we'll actually get a win this week. Who knows?
That means, of course, Tommy Turbo has been named. He's playing 75 at centre on the weekend. He won't get dual position for this year. All the dual position updates are done. They're done as of last week. So he won't get dual position, so you have to select him at fullback. But 75 at centre is still a pretty decent return.
Yeah, it was interesting. He wasn't too involved in the first half, and Manly only scored that one try. But after the halftime break, he must have gotten permission to roam the field because he was all over the place and very involved after that, and it paid off. So you'd think that he sort of has a licence to roam going forward, playing at centre, which I think makes him interesting. He is really cheap, but I think the fact that he's only a fullback means he's not a buy for me. But playing at centre now, you'd think if he plays there for the rest of the year, he would start next year at centre wing and could be pretty cheap. So could be a good buy for next year.
The pressure's on. No, if he does play a lot of games at centre wing, then obviously he will get dual for next year. And if he can average 75 at that position, then he'll be awesome for next year. For me, it's a no-no for this season, though.
Yeah, unless he was to go back. In saying that, Lehigh wasn't the greatest in the park last week, so there could be a chance where Turbo does return, but I'd want to see that one next to his name before I did buy him.
Yep.
I've done the Wilson twice, bringing a guy back in after I've sold, so I've owned Turbo on 3 separate occasions this year, and it hasn't gone well all 3, but I'll be there again if it goes back to full.
Every year, I think I own Turbo about 3 times, and I've finally cut the cord this year, and I have to say it feels pretty good. On to the Rabbitohs. So obviously the Origin guys are out. Any love at the Rabbitohs? Good to see Keon Kalamatangi named. So he was down a little bit over the weekend. He's carrying a facial fracture, which is, it's fair enough that he only played 60 minutes instead of his usual, basically 80.
Yeah, I was not expecting him to be available for us this week. I thought for sure he was going to play Origin, but the fact that he is available is just awesome.
It was a very odd week last week. Payne Haas down production. Terrell May didn't play 80 minutes. Keon didn't play 80 minutes. It was a very cursed week last week. But no, fantastic to see him named. Tallis Duncan. He's been unreal for the last 3 weeks or so, and a guy that obviously is going to cover this week and could be your sort of 2RF 5 or 6 for the run home. So I think he's a guy to consider as well. But the big one is at Origin camp right now. Latrell Mitchell looks so good when he's back. He's a guy that I'm really keen on.
Yep, another guy who just missed out on dual position eligibility. So if he was at centre or 5'8", then he'd be much more popular. Unfortunately, didn't quite get there. On to the guys who are on the buys. So Fletcher Sharp, Kalen Ponga, both out long term, so sell. I think one of the biggest issues this week, and certainly for the last couple of weeks, is whether to sell Tino Fa'asuamaleaui. He's averaging 50 over the last 4 rounds, been carrying a sternum injury. So do you cut the cord this week? Do you go him to Jacob Preston, for example?
I don't hate it. I'm going to be holding. I think if you were going to sell him, he's been a sell candidate for a couple of weeks now. I'm sort of just banking on the fact that after Origin, he'll hopefully get back to full fitness and start banging out some big scores again. So I'm just going to hold him and hope that he comes good.
Shameless plug, but over on my socials, we had this discussion about 2 weeks ago. He was 700k then, and I was more keen with the sell then. He's now 570. I feel like if you didn't sell, you've probably made your bed and you've just got to get comfortable sleeping in it. As like Wilson said, the minutes were there last week. He played 70-odd minutes. The production just wasn't. So hopefully after Origin, you might cop one more bad week, but then hopefully it's a tenner that we know for the run home.
At the Panthers, Thomas Jenkins, second most popular sell. He's made 400k. He's just been awesome for SuperCoach this year. But he's got to buy the big break even, 124 this week. So it's time to say farewell. But what a job he has done for SuperCoaches this year.
It's been a weird season because he started like a house on fire, and then Casey McLean sort of went through that stage where he didn't want to pass for about 3 weeks, and then Jenkins dipped a lot, and then had a massive resurgence now that McLean's really improved. So he's been unreal. 400k for Thomas Jenkins is probably one of the best cheapies of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And he switched position so many times as well. On to Nico Hines, 8th most popular sell. We've probably touched on that. And Luke Metcalf, the most popular sell this week with that ACL injury. it's a massive blow for him. He's done his ACL before. It's a huge blow for the Warriors as well, who were looking pretty good for top 4 at the very least.
Yeah, it's really devastating blow for him. I had already sold him, but I think the fact now that he's definitely out for the year, he's a sell for sure. Not urgent if you have other guys you have to sell, but definitely a sell.
Probably the Dally M favourite as well, which is really sucks for him playing absolutely unreal footy. So it's devastating for him, devastating for the Wars, and just footy as a whole.
Indeed. Well, that is it for our teams podcast. As I said, so many injuries, suspensions to deal with as well. Big thanks to the 2 Ws, the Whisperer and Wilson, and we'll catch you tomorrow for the preview podcast.